Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976 allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Colombiana 2. 2025. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Friends, this is not a movie, this is a full detail review and fact video about this movie. If you want to know about this movie, then you must like this video, because in today's video we will tell you what is its story, which actors and actresses have worked in this film. The director, producer, cameraman of this film is going to talk about them in detail. We will talk about the post-production, pre-production budget, and filming of this film. The star cast of the film will also give details about the supporting cast and production. Guys, if you want to know about this movie, you must watch this video. You will find all the details of this movie in this video. What is the story of this movie? If you like this video, then share it with your friends and subscribe our channel. Colombiana 2 in 2025 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Colombiana 2 2025 brings back the fierce Catalia Restrepo, portrayed by Zoe Saldana, on another journey of vengeance and justice. Following the events of the first film, where Catalia took down the men responsible for her parents' deaths, she now faces an even more dangerous challenge, a deadly syndicate that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Plot overview. The story begins with Catalia trying to lead a quieter life, having partially escaped the violent shadows of her past. She's found a small semblance of peace, living under a new identity in a remote village in South America. However, rumors of a powerful crime syndicate known as the Silver FWN begin spreading. This syndicate, notorious for trafficking and large-scale corruption, has a reputation for wiping out entire communities that resist them. When the Silver Fang arrives in Kalia's village, its enforcers inadvertently bring her back into a world she was hoping to leave behind. Kalia's conflict. The Silver Fang quickly realizes they've made a grave mistake in provoking Catalia, as she is once again drawn into a spiral of vengeance. The villagers rally around her as she becomes their guardian angel and protector, but Catalia realizes this fight isn't just about one village, it's about something far larger. The Silver Fang has ties with corrupt politicians, international drug trafficking, and even some of her old enemies who have resurfaced to hunt her down. New characters and allies. Catalia encounters a skilled hacker, Encio, who was once a part of an underground cyber group before being forced into hiding after a run-in with the syndicate. Together they work to expose the syndicate's activities and weaken its network. Nico brings in an additional level of danger, but also emotional complexity, as he begins to see Catalia as more than just a skilled assassin, and Catalia's struggle between vulnerability and survival becomes a key narrative point. Rising tension as Catalia and Nico move deeper into dismantling the syndicate. They face betrayal, loss, and increasingly lethal confrontations. Kalia's dark past is constantly referenced, testing her resilience as she confronts her own violent tendencies. This is not just a battle against enemies, but against her inner demons, particularly when the syndicate's head, a man known as El Alacrán, begins targeting innocent people close to her, forcing Catalia into a corner where no one is safe. Climactic showdown. The film's climax brings Catalia face to face with El Alacran in an intense showdown at the Syndicate's high-tech isolated compound deep in the jungle. Here Catalia has to fight not only to save herself and those she's come to care about, but also to find some form of redemption. The fight is raw, unforgiving, and shows her full capabilities as she takes down the Syndicate's most elite guards battling for justice and closure. Ending, the film ends with Catalia once again alone but at peace, knowing she has avenged those who suffered at the hands of the Silver FWN. Nico returns to his underground network with a promise that he'll be there if she ever needs him. Catalia, with scars both visible and hidden, walks into the sunset, symbolizing her endless fight for justice and the price of survival. Overall tone: the sequel maintains the gritty high-stakes action and intense emotional stakes of the original, with a more in-depth exploration of Catalia's psyche. Colombiana 2 promises to deliver heart-pounding action while diving into questions of loyalty, vengeance, and the cost of a life lived in shadows. Plot for Colombiana 2. 2025. Colombiana 2 takes us back into the ruthless, high-octane world of Catalia Restrepo, portrayed once again by Zoe Saldana, set several years after the events of the first movie. This sequel delves into themes of legacy, redemption, and the relentless pull of a past riddled with violence. Act 1: the calm before the storm. Since avenging her parents' deaths, Catalia has managed to stay under the radar, living quietly in the remote village of San Miguel, deep within the jungles of South America. Under an assumed identity, she sought peace, and the villagers view her as a mysterious but protective figure. Catalia has begun to soften, even building connections with some villagers, including a young girl, Camila, who looks up to her, but her tranquil life is shattered in a powerful cartel known as the T Silver FWN begins expanding its territory, headed by the ruthless and elusive leader known only as El Alrin the Scorpion. The Syndicate engages in drug trafficking, arms dealing, and human exploitation. San Miguel is targeted due to its strategic location for trafficking routes, and the cartel wastes no time making its presence known through violence and terror. Act 2: Catalia resurfaces when Silver Fang enforcers assault San Miguel. Catalia is forced to reveal her skills defending the villagers with lethal precision. Witnessing her unmatched ferocity, the cartel quickly realizes that Catalia is no ordinary resident. Her actions gain notoriety, and El Alrin becomes intrigued by rumors of La Tigresa, the Tigress, defend a small village. During one skirmish, Catalia meets Nico, a former hacker from a European activist network footprint, and offers to help her in exchange for protection. Though hesitant to work with anyone, Catalia recognizes Nico's skills and agrees, seeing an opportunity to disrupt the cartel on a larger scale. Act 3: the fight for justice and survival. With Nico's help, Catalia begins targeting the cartel's resources, destroying shipments, intercepting communications, and undermining Silver Fang's hold on nearby communities. Her actions enrage El Alrin, who responds by sending elite assassins to San Miguel. The attacks escalate, becoming personal when the cartel captures and kills Camila, the young girl. Catalia had grown attached to Camila's death pushes Catalia over the edge, unleashing her deepest rage. No longer content to simply disrupt operations, she makes it her mission to hunt down El Alacran and dismantle Silver Fang. Entirely the villagers, though fearful, offer their support and Ni becomes a loyal ally, risking his life to assist her in every way he can act for. Entering the lion's den, Catalia learns of El Alacran's stronghold, a fortress deep in the jungle outfitted with advanced technology and heavily guarded with Nico's digital infiltration. She discovers the compound's weaknesses and embarks on a deadly mission, navigating treacherous terrain and fending off the cartel's relentless mercenaries. Nico provides remote support, but is eventually captured, forcing Catalia to accelerate her plan to rescue him and confront El Alrin. Directly inside the compound, Catalia encounters a labyrinth of traps and ruthless guards. With her experience and brutal efficiency, she eliminates them one by one, her skills in combat and survival proving unmatched. Finally, she faces El Alacran, who is revealed to be a former military strategist with a personal vendetta against anyone who challenges his empire. Act 5, the final showdown. In a heart-pounding confrontation, Catalia and El Alacran engage in a brutal fight. Despite his strength and cunning, he is no match for Catalia as agility and resolve. After a relentless battle, Catalia defeats El Alacran, avenging Camila's death and liberating San Miguel and the surrounding communities from the cartel's control. She frees Nico, who, though injured, vows to continue using his skills to expose criminal organizations and fight for justice. Catalia realizes that while she may never escape her violent past, she can at least use her skills to protect the innocent. Epilogue, a new legacy. The final scenes show Catalia leaving San Miguel, now a folk hero among the revenge plot. Directed by Olivier Megaton and written by Luc Besson and Robert Mark Kamen, the first film brought viewers into the dangerous world of Catalia Restrepo, a fierce assassin driven by vengeance for her parents' murders. Over the years, the film has gained a dedicated fan base, fueling demand for a sequel that would delve further into Calia's complex character and offer closure, or perhaps a new beginning for her story. Director. The reins of Colombiana 2 have been taken up by filmmaker David Leitch, known for his work on action-packed films like John Wick, Atomic Blonde, and Hobbs and Shaw. His flair for meticulously choreographed action sequences, combined with narrative depth and character exploration, makes him a fitting choice to take Calia's journey to new levels. Production studio and writers. Produced by Europa Corp and Sony Pictures. The script has been penned by emerging screenwriters known for their work in gritty dramas, focusing on a narrative that emphasizes character development alongside high-stakes action. With a reputed director and dedicated writing team, Colombiana 2 promises to be a worthy successor with strong character focus and cinematic appeal. Encore. Encore, 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 underscore. Underscore, underscore, underscore. Underscore. Plot summary. In Colombiana 2, Catalia Restrepo, played once again by Zoe Saldana, has attempted to leave her violent past behind, seeking solace in a quiet life in the secluded South American village of San Miguel. However, peace is fleeting when a ruthless cartel known as the Silver FWN, led by the enigmatic El Alrin, the Scorpion encroaches upon her new home. They unleash terror on the villagers, capturing and killing innocents and forcing Catalia back into action. Catalia, joined by a skilled hacker named Nico, who shares his own vendetta against the cartel, sets out on a path to destroy the syndicate. Nico becomes her tech-savvy ally, helping her disrupt the cartel's network from the inside. Together they attempt to bring down the powerful criminal empire, facing betrayal, violence, and a fight for survival. The climax sees Catalia confronting El Alacran in his high-security jungle compound, leading to an intense showdown that tests both her physical prowess and emotional resilience. Encore. 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 Underscore. Encore. 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 Underscore. Encore. 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 Underscore. Encore. 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 Casting and performances. Zoe Saldana reprises her role as Catalia, bringing a depth of experience in portraying both physical action and emotional vulnerability. Saldana's portrayal is expected to delve into the toll of a life spent in shadows, showcasing a blend of fierce determination and subtle moments of inner encore themes in tone. Colombiana 2 is not just an action movie, it carries underlying themes of redemption, inner peace, and the price of vengeance. The film carefully juxtaposes Calia's violent skills with her longing for a more peaceful existence, giving audiences a deeper look into the toll that constant combat and isolation have taken on her psyche. One redemption and legacy. The movie dives into Calia's emotional journey as she grapples with the effects of her vengeance-driven life. Her bond with the villagers, particularly a young girl named Camila, gives her a glimpse into what life could be beyond violence, while her alliance with Nico introduces trust into her world of calculated caution. To justice versus revenge. In this sequel, Calia's fight transcends personal vendetta and enters the realm of social justice as she strives to protect her new community. This shift offers a refreshing complexity to her character, making her a hero not just for herself but for others. 3. Sacrifice and survival. The narrative unflinchingly shows the stakes and sacrifices involved, especially when innocent lives are caught in the crossfire. These themes add a sense of realism, grounding the film and making it resonate with audiences beyond the thrill of action. Encore. 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 Underscore. 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 Encore. Underscore. Encore. Underscore. 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 Encore. 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 Underscore. Encore. 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 Encore action sequences and cinematography under David Leitch's direction. The action choreography in Colombiana 2 is expected to be visceral and precise, blending hand-to-hand combat with sleek tactical maneuvers. The film makes ample use of the South American jungle setting, utilizing lush, dense environments and hidden compounds to create suspense. The contrast between Catalia guerrilla-style attacks and the cartel's high-tech security fortifies the film's central conflict and showcases her tactical ingenuity. The cinematography is visually striking, with warm, shadowy tones that reflect the mystery of the jungle. Setting in the tension-laden atmosphere, high-energy sequences, including a climactic showdown in the cartel's compound, are likely to be fan favorites, highlighting Kalia's growth as both a tactician and a fighter. Encore, 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 encore. 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 Underscore, encore, encore, encore. Underscore critical review. Pros 1. Engaging storyline. The film's balanced approach to both character development and action ensures that Catalia is a fully fleshed out protagonist, appealing to both new viewers and longtime fans too. Performance by Saldana. Sana's portrayal of Catalia brings weight and empathy to the role, making the character's internal struggle deeply relatable. 3. Exceptional action and direction. David Leitch's direction brings a high-quality, polished look to the action sequences, keeping them both stylish and intense. Cons. 1. Potential predictability for audiences familiar with action tropes. Parts of the plot, such as Catalia seeking redemption or a climactic battle against the cartel leader, may feel somewhat formulaic. 2. Dark tone. The movie's unrelenting tone of violence and tension may be off-putting for viewers looking for lighter action fare. Underscore. Encore, 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 encore. 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 Encore, 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 underscore. Encore, encore, encore. Encore. Conclusion. Colombiana 2 is positioned to be a thrilling, thoughtful successor to the original, delivering on both action and character depth. The movie's darker themes, complex characters, and polished action sequences make it a promising film that respects and expands upon its predecessor, honoring the legacy of Catalia Restrepo while offering something fresh and intense with a strong creative team, a compelling plot, and stellar performances. Colombiana 2 is likely to captivate fans of the original while earning new admirers for its unapologetic exploration of vengeance, justice, and survival. Colombiana 2 in 2025 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Let's discuss previous parts. Colombiana is a 2011 French-English language action thriller film kitten and produced by Luc Besson and directed by Olivier Megaton. The film stars Zoe Saldana with supporting roles by Michael Von Cliff, Curtis Lenny, James Callum Blue, and Jordi Mola. The film is about Catalia, a 9-year-old girl in Colombia whose family is killed by a drug lord. 15 years later, a grown Catalia seeks her revenge. The film had a generally unfavorable reception from critics, but Sana's performance and action sequences were praised. It grossed $63.4 million against a $40 million production budget. Plot: in 1992, in Bogota, Colombia, drug baron Don Luis Sandoval sends his enforcer Marco and a gang of armed men to kill his gang member Fabio Restrepo and his family because Fabio has defied him by trying to leave his prolific drug crime activity behind. Fabio gives his 9-year-old daughter Catalia a smart media computer memory card loaded with information on Don Lee's business and tells her it's her passport. He also gives her the address of her uncle, Emilio in Chicago, Illinois, who will take care of her. Finally, he leaves her with her mother's Catalia orchid necklace after Fabio and his wife Alicia are gunned down. Catalia escapes and seeks asylum at the U.S. Embassy. She is granted passage to the United States after handing over the memory card to embassy staff, although American officials attempt to transfer her into the foster care system. Catalia tracks down her uncle in Chicago and asks him to train her as a killer. 15 years later, in 2007, a grown Catalia has become an accomplished assassin. Emilio serves as the lives of his own family, but she admits that she does not care about the risk to his family while she is spending the night with her American boyfriend, Danny Delaney. He takes a photo of her sleeping and then shows it to a friend, who then decides to run a background check on Catalia, which alerts the FBI. Meanwhile, FBI agent James Ross is working to identify the killer behind more than 20 unsolved murders, all of which have Catalia orchids left behind. He gets a pin on Calia's photo from the background check and orders her arrest. But Catalia escapes and reaches out to Emilio, only to find that she has indeed caused the brutal slaughter of Emilio and his entire family. She confronts Ross at his home and threatens to kill him and his entire family, forcing him to reach out to CIA agent Steve Richard, who she knows is sheltering Don Lees from the law in exchange for his cooperation with American authorities. When she threatens to slaughter Richard's family, Richard gives her the Don's location. Don Lees learns that Catalia is still alive and organizes his men to kill her, but she ambushes them first and wipes out the entire gang, including Marco. Don Lees flees and swears revenge. Catalia, having planted her specially trained attack dogs in his escape vehicle, orders them to eat alive. Danny is interrogated by Ross. Catalia calls him from a payphone. They talk briefly before Ross grabs Danny's phone, but Catalia hangs up, leaving town. On a bus cast Zoe Saldana as Catalia, a contract killer who seeks revenge when her drug-dealing father and mother are murdered by their criminal associates. Jordi Mola as Marco, Don Lees main enforcer and the man who executed Calia's parents while she watched Lenny. James is Ross, FBI special agent tasked with investigating Calia's assassinations. Amanda Stenberg as 10-year-old Catalia. Callum Blue as Richard's CIA agent who arranged Don Lees' relocation in cooperation. Cynthia Adai Robinson as Alicia, Calia's mother, who is killed, along with her husband Jesse Go as Fabio, Calia's father and a drug business partner of Don Lees, who was ordered killed when he tried to quit the criminal life. Ophelia Medina as Mama. Emilio's mother Angel Jica as Pepe. Emilio's father Sam Douglas as Willie. Ward Graham McTavish as head U.S. Marshal. Warren Max Martini as Agent Robert. Williams B. Bonnets as Don Luis A. Colombian drug lord who ordered the killing of Calia's family, then cut a deal with the CIA. Michael Vaughn as Danny DeLan, Calia's boyfriend and artist. He knows Catalia as Jennifer. Cliff Curtis as Alilio Restrepo, Calia's uncle and professional killer who raises and trains her after her parents were killed. Production. The script for Colombiana was based on Matilda, which was originally written by Luc Besson as a sequel to Law and the Professional after a disagreement with the Gaunt Film Company on how to proceed With the film Besson and director Olivier Megaton reworked the script into a standalone film. Filming began in August 2010 in locations including Chicago, New Orleans, Mexico, and France. The film was produced by Besses Europa Corp. Company. Mixed or average reviews. Christy Lamere of the Associated Press reviewed Colombiana, writing that the director of Lane Nikita and The Fifth Element serves as co-writer and producer here, but this is very much a spin-off of his brand, a continuation of the kind of stereotype and gravity-defying characters he's made his name on. Colombiana feels more hammy and muscular, though, but knowingly so, and that's what makes it solid late summer escapist fun. Betsy Shy of the Los Angeles Times wrote, "This B-movie blast of bloody blam blam is the latest chapter in the Luc Besson book of badly bruised lovelies who are better not crossed." What he began in 1990 with Nikita followed with Lawn in 94 and 97's The Fifth Element, the last written with Robert Mark Kamen, who co-wrote Colombiana with Besson. He refines in Colombiana. Claudia PG of USA Today wrote, "This is a showy flower of an action film. Sanaa doesn't get much of a chance to emote, but her action skills blossom." Jordan Miner of The Hollywood Reporter said that there are guilty pleasures to be had in this frenzy be starring Zoe Saldana, who gives an acrobatic performance that makes the overcooked material watchable. Controversy. A non-profit group called Poor Colombia criticized the film, saying that it stereotyped Colombia in a negative way. Carlos Msas, president of Poor Colombia, claimed that the film is proof of a total lack of creativity in Hollywood. When asked about the situation in an interview, Sanaa said, "Shame on them, I don't know, I wish I knew how to address stupid unintelligent comments, but I don't, I'm not a stupid person." The following year, in an essay published in Senses of Cinema, David Martin Jones focused on a different aspect of the South American character, believing that the film provided a different perspective concerning immigration and international wealth inequality. He notes that a character from the global South wreaks havoc on the wealthy and corrupt in the global North, offering a different perspective than is usually seen in a Hollywood blockbuster. Box office. Colombiana grossed $36.7 million domestically, United States and Canada, and $26.80 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $63.5 million. Against a budget of $40 million, it opened at number 2 in the first of its 3 consecutive weeks in the top 10 at the domestic box office. Sequel. At the 2015 See Europe, when the production house Europa Corp announced upcoming films, it mentioned that Colombiana 2 was in 2011. A part of me wants to agree with him, but another part wants to blame the lack of quality of Hollywood's action blockbusters for this regrettable situation, and the latter part is talking louder to my conscious brain. I don't really care about things blowing up all over my screen if there's no John Lan walking through the wreckage to be there on time to pick up Holly and the kids. I had high hopes that Colombiana wouldn't buy into cheap thrills after seeing the trailer. I always fancy female action movies, as they are a nice change of pace from the male angst-ridden bullet fests I usually watch. Despite being technically sound, Colombiana did not live up to my expectations at all. Seeing who was behind it now, I wonder why I got my hopes up in the first place. Colombia is an awful place to be a criminal in. Olivier Megaton's movie working in Bad as drug market is like working public function in the US. You're more likely to be on somebody's payroll than to become Scarface. It's a little racist, but I can deal with that. Catalia Restrepo Salana learns this the hard way when her parents are murdered by the henchmen of Don Leesby Bonnets back when she was a child. That moment defined her whole existence. She goes on exile to her uncle Marco Jordi Mola best place and learns the quirks of being an assassin. By the time she turns 24, she is a stone cold, highly skilled professional who works for her uncle, but she is devoured by her need for vengeance. All of her life has been building up that moment where she would cross path with Don Luis again. I have two main problems with Colombiana. First of all, Catalia Restrepo isn't exactly a female protagonist as much as she's a male fantasy. She's sexy, athletic, performs killings worthy of Sam Fisher's admiration, __, without calling back or almost asterisk, and devotes her life to kicking ass and taking names instead. Sando, this movie really messes with my suspension of disbelief. While the action is slick and well filmed, there were many of those wait a minute moments where my good intentions towards Colombiana were seriously challenged. For example, that escape she made from Don Luis, gone through the streets of Bogota, where child Catalia Amand Lostenberg looked like an Olympic hopeful for the gymnastics team, more than your average privileged 9-year-old. I can believe a 9 years old to be savvy and streetwise, but being actually more savvy and streetwise than seasoned killers that are plot relevant. ***, come on, it's bad, and it's just one example. It's sad and very __, frustrating because Colombiana has its moments, some scenes gripping and beautiful. For example, towards the beginning of the movie, Catalia is going on a job in Mexico where she was to eliminate a fraudulent banker type. It's one of the best filmed action sequence I've seen in 2011. The way it's scripted, the way the tension goes up, it's brilliant. There are a few of those scenes in Colombiana showing that this story had potential. I know I'm asking much of the Olivier Megaton Luc Besson team, who has provided us great movies like The Transporter 3, while Besson used to write good movies. The Fifth Element, the Taxi series. The last decent script he wrote was for Taken in 2008, and a keyword here is decent ***. I can't really recommend you to watch Colombiana, but if you're caught with it in a social situation, it's a frustrating viewing, but it has its moments. It's technically sound and visually beautiful, but the script is plagued with most issues that have been plaguing Hollywood action scripts since the beginning of the 21st century. Movies like this won't trigger an action SL crime film renaissance. I just needed to get to the core of how this movie troubled me by getting to talk about specific scenes that make no bleeding sense. So if you're worried about being spoiled with this movie, then don't read any further. The action genre of filmmaking is one of the most critically disliked genres of all. I believe it sometimes, while over the years some form of criteria has been assembled as to what makes a good action sequence, it's always made the story to be a problem rather than a friend, and therein lays the biggest problem with Colombiana. What this film is meant to do, it does well for the most part. The film's general, glorified, overly meticulously designed, almost impossible assassination sequences are great to watch, and they're fun. You sit in your seat staring at the big screen ahead of You with your face emoting shock as you see tiny little Sana work her way through the smallest of cavities of a building or using the most mundane of objects as the L-spin of her assassination scheme, so I find it almost unfair to complain about the things that didn't work in this movie, since it's all the things that never seem to work in 90% of the action films out there. Its logic and story structure is a complete mess. There are so many scenes where characters say things that make almost no sense and do things without much consequence that you can't imagine how they were ignored. Catalia Zoe Saldana decides, after seeing her mother and father murder by whom I can only assume is the big drug kingpin in Colombia, that she wants to become a killer so as to be able to enact revenge. Part of her grand scheme is, since she doesn't know how to find her parents' killer, to smoke them out by marking each of her amazing murders with a message that only she and these men would understand. However, since it's such a peculiar detail, the authorities refused to release it to the press until 4 years later. Now you would imagine that either the police would use the same logic for why 4 years later they decide to release this information a lot earlier, therefore pushing the story along, or Catalia would realize that this message isn't getting out and do something different. There's a scene where a mellow Cliff Curtis shoots randomly around a school in broad daylight on a whim to prove a point to young Catalia. I find it immensely hilarious how he never has to worry about the police or anyone seemingly staring directly at him as he takes his time to expose his reasoning for why Kalia needs to do things his way. Also, there's a romance ongoing with Catalia and Danny to exact or revenge. The action film style changes from this exact science of a killing to a free-for all brawl that Selena enters into, and immediately, due to chaotic film making, the action becomes too hard to decipher that it's almost unbearable when 9-year-old Kalia's parents are murdered in front of her. She vows to avenge their death and dedicates her life to becoming an expert assassin. While watching Colombiana, it becomes increasingly hard to believe that it was written by Luc Besson, the same man who brought us the excellent Leon, a high point in the assassin genre, where that film boasted an intelligent screenplay, strong performances, and genuine tension and thrills. Colombiana is a tiresome revenge thriller devoid of any of the pleasures of that film. A closer comparison would be taken Besson's joyously ot Liam Nis vehicle that made up for what it lacked in brains, with solid thrills and ridiculous violence, something Colombiana can only dream of achieving. The plot is a simple one. Catalia Amanda Stenberg watches as her parents are murdered in front of her at the age of 9, given instruction by her father beforehand. Catalia flees Colombia and winds up in Chicago with her uncle Curtis. One day, impossible, the film's most preposterous scene. Catalia tells her uncle she wants to be a killer too, which he pulls out a gun and murders a driver in the middle of a busy street in broad daylight, apparently as a way of illustrating that she should stay in school to become a more efficient killer. Of course she does, and we jump forward 15 years to a grown Catalia Sana, now going by the name Jennifer, faking a DUI to get inside a specific jail to slip through some air vents and murder an important prisoner staying in one of the cells. She marks the body with a rare orchid only found in Colombia, as she has with her previous 22 kills, in an attempt to get press attention and draw out the men responsible for her parents' death. What happens from then is a mess of poor acting silly action scenes and utterly pointless dialogue. Every single character in this film is so utter one-dimensional that any dialogue they have is there to service the plot and nothing more. The only attempt to flesh out any character comes through a horrendous subplot involving Michael Vaughn as Danny Kaluuya's casual lover who fills the archetypal woman's role of pining after the mysterious, emotionally detached assassin. The scenes between the two are so poorly handled by all involved that they just come across as funny. The turgid love scenes aren't even the worst thing in the film. One terribly directed fight scene trying desperately for Bourne-style grip sees Catalia facing off against her arched nemesis with a towel and two toothbrushes. There are numerous scenes of the FBI using computers that can seemingly perform miraculous acts of searching and matching data in a split second, which even becomes pivotal to the plot on more than one occasion. The final face-off dare not be spoiled here, but could possibly be the worst climax to a film of all time. The last of logic or intelligence would have been quickly forgiven had the film been at least fun. Where Taken succeeded was by not taking itself too seriously, keeping the plot simple and making sure Nissan always had a badass one-liner to hand. Colombian has seemingly aims a lot higher but fails miserably, ending up a paste mess with a lead who really isn't all that likable or interesting. It's kind of hard to root for a woman who at one point smashes her neighbor's face into a table for no apparent reason, then seemingly blows up his apartment, presumably killing him in the process just to escape the FBI. Saldana must have thought this was a great idea, a strong female lead and maybe even the beginning of a franchise. The end result isn't a complete career killer but is definitely a step backwards. Olivier Megaton, fresh off his English language debut, The Transporter 3, hardly showers himself in glory either. The film is bathed in the same vaguely green hue that C seems to have become the go-of for stylish thrillers, and the action scenes are so badly cut together it's hard to really tell who's hitting who, and if you even care anyway after witnessing the brutal murder of her parents at the hands of Colombian drug lords. Catalia Zoe Saldana grows up to become a ruthless assassin bent on revenge. That's the plot of Colombiana in a nutshell, and to be honest there isn't much more substance than that to the story. At the core the story is like Leon Light, essentially an empty version of the same plot carried further. Lucky for you there is some solid ass-kicking action to back up what the script by Luc Besson and Robert Mark Kamen lacks. Colombiana is strongest in the opening. Young Catalia Amanda Stenberg, instead of being the fragile broken child who just saw her parents butchered, is a badass. She stabs Marco Jordi Molabad boys to an evil henchman in the hand, then lure a gang of heavily armed cartel enforcers on an epic foot through the slums of Bogota. Who knew 8-year-old girls were so adept at parkour all on her own? She finds her way to Chicago, where her uncle Amello Cliff Curtis is a medium-level crime figure. Catalia is as strong as she needs to be, but also still a child, and with the single-minded focus that only a child has, declares that she is going to become a killer with or without Emilio's help. Resourceful and determined, you never doubt for a second that she'll succeed in her quest. Fast forward 15 years and Catalia has become just what she set out to become, a highly skilled killer with vengeance on her mind. After a couple of nice scenes of her professional prowess which take every opportunity to strip Sanaa down to the most minimal amount of clothing possible. However, even when fully clothed, you can pretty much always see her nipples. Seriously, Sanaa's nipples should get their own credit. The pace begins to sag. In fact, the middle of the movie is largely forgettable, laughable at points, and is over-serious to the point of absurdity. There are a bunch of unnecessary asides, including tangents about an FBI agent, Lenny James, hot on Kalia's trail, a vaguely corrupt and generic CIA agent, Callum Blue, and far too many scenes of her making out with her hot painter hump buddy Michael Vaughn. Alias, in reality, everything that doesn't directly revolve around action is probably best ignored, but things always look darkest just before the dawn, right? And I'll say it one more time, lucky for you right as you're about to give up hope. Colombiana gets rad again, and we're talking rocket launchers, hand grenades, and a toe fight. Rat, there isn't much to think about too seriously in Colombiana. It's a simplistic look at culture and trauma, and a story full of character caricatures and stereotypes at its best. However, the film is entertaining eye candy, and that's enough for me tonight. There are shark fights, intricate assassinations, lots of things to blow up, and an assortment of interchangeable goons with no larger purpose in life than to become cannon fodder for a hot killer in a bodysuit. Sure, it's cheesy and melodramatic, but what the hell, it's also a good time. I can't help but think that without Sanaa's presence, Colombian would never grace the multiplexes. This is a kind of action movie that rarely gets a wide theatrical release anymore, unless it happens to be directed by Sylvester Stallone and star a bunch of 80s action icons. Usually films of this nature are relegated to the direct-to-video market and enjoyed only by the hardcore among us who actively seek out genre features. This is the kind of action I grew up on. It's a little bit sexy, a little bit silly, and to be sure there are some moments of blustery overacting in poorly executed American accents, but all in all, Colombiana isn't bad, I think. It is also worth noting that a man with the surname Megaton is responsible for directing Colombiana. It takes a certain level of balls to change your name from Olivier Fontana to Olivier Megaton. How do you explain that one to your parents? But that's exactly the type of personality, one full of cockiness and bravado, that I want in charge of my action movies. Well played, Megaton, well played. The conveyor belt of producer Luc Besson's action movie factory delivers at least one mindless shoot 'em up per year. Occasionally, the yield of dull titles such as From Paris with Love is broken up by something as entertaining as Taken, but not often. Colombiana exists as a mid-range action product with violence to spare, reasonable star power, lots of momentum, even more violence, and heaps of sex appeal, all tempered for mass consumption by a PG-13 rating. COR. Written by Besson and Robert Mark Kamen. The movie was directed by Olivier Megaton Transporter 3, one of Besson's clan who is yet to break out the way Pierre Morel District 13 has here. Megaton rushes through a story that deserves comparisons to Bess's own. The professional, after witnessing the murder of her mother and Colombian drug lord hitman father at the hands of competitor Don Luis B. Ben and his goon Marco Jordi Mula, the 9-year-old Catalia Amanda Stenberg escapes in a mediocre parkour chase sequence on the rooftops of Bogota. She makes her way to Chicago and takes refuge with her uncle Emilio Cliff Curtis, A gangster who values family, she insists on getting revenge, and that Emilo train her to be a killer, and he agrees on the condition that she goes to school. Cut to 15 years later, by which this time Catalia, now played by Avatar star Zoe Saldana, has accumulated a hit list of 20 or more kills, all very bad people and all meant to draw out Don Lees, who has since gone into hiding under CIA protection, a normal wife with her casual boyfriend Danny Michael Vaughn, who until recently she has used for sex, never seemed feasible, but suddenly Danny wants to talk and Catalia begins to feel something beneath her cold exterior. Meanwhile, while flavorless FBI Special Agent Ross Lenny James is hot on his suspect's trail but refuses to believe the killer is a woman, because no woman could ever do what this killer has done. Clearly Agent Ross hasn't seen Besson's Laugh, Nikita, or The Fifth Element. But he's got to find the killer, because that's what FBI agents do, so he asks the press to distribute her signature A. Cattleya orchid drawn on each victim's chest in black lipstick. When Don Lees sees this, he sends out his thugs to search for Catalia, putting her few dear associates and family members in harm's way. Saldana makes a welcome replacement for Besson's other action heroes, the likes of Jason Statham and Jet Li actors, whose scowls are interrupted. Family and boyfriend, the movie's sexy chick with guns concept, reaches its height when the protagonist escapes an FBI raid with little more than her undergarments and a massive assassin's rifle, the only obvious cliché missing from the overcooked Colombiana is an androgynous female villainess to rival Sana in the 1980s. Such a role would have been played by Bridget Nealon, though he avoids this bit of formula. There aren't too many other clichés. Megaton, a ridiculous self-appointed moniker, doesn't employ action scenes, adopt that familiar over-edited shaky cam style that has spread like a disease through the majority of today's action movies, and cuts have a man on fire strobe effect that might cause an epileptic seizure. Everything that you expect to happen does, but the result is certainly more watchable than the majority of Besson produced actioners, and will no doubt provide some mild diversion for action junkies. Colombiana is a movie that is best enjoyed if you prepare yourself for the unbelievable. It's hard not to start here. When within the first 10 minutes of the movie, I noticed a handful of things on the screen that I just thought were outright unbelievable. I got the impression that the filmmakers were making this movie for someone who doesn't have much common sense or a grasp on reality, or can just forego such things in the aspiration of entertainment. There are scenes in this movie that are so blatantly exaggerated that you can't help but feel borderline insulted by the writers for even conceiving the idea, let alone thinking that an audience will accept any unrealistic scenarios just for the purpose of progressing the story. Let me try to better explain. You know those moments when you watch a movie and you just see a character do something so stupidly counterproductive to their own survival that you just rest your head in your hand until it's over. That's pretty much sums up the entirety of the opening scene of Colombiana. It's one thing to manufacture the progression of the story, but it's another thing to use and write characters as tools while they defy basic logic and common sense. For this purpose, I don't like the use of dumbed-down characters just for the sake of story progression, and I think it's a piss-poor way and excuse to progress the story of a movie. Colombiana does have some redeeming qualities as there were a few times I would have believed that I was watching a movie created by a young and lesser experienced Michael Bay with all the flash eye candy and explosions to complement the movie in the usual Bay way. Colombiana tries to mimic the action of some of the best revenge movies of our time and at times actually pulls this off pretty well, but there are times when you notice that there's room for improvement. There are a few scenes where you can truly become immersed by the action and cinematography in front of you and how the movie progresses, and there are times when this movie hints at having a level of wit and intelligence that captures your attention in such a way that the movie truly picks up and hints at better things to come. You'll follow along with Katala as she scales buildings, ventilation systems, creeps down hallways in a sexy and feline fashion that delivers a cool mix of DC's Catwoman and Metal Gear's Solid Snake. Her intelligence in the art of espionage and her tactics really add to a level of entertainment with the entire movie as you see her systematically and intelligently take on or assassinate an individual in the most ludicrously guarded places. You'll definitely have a few moments that make you sit on the edge of your seat just to find out how she actually pulls off these stunts and how she eventually makes a mistake. Zoe Saldana channels her best Angelina Jolie in this movie. Seriously, she has the effeminate, feline, and seductive down to a science and produces a performance for a character that's an amalgamation of Lara Croft, Evelyn Salt and Fox, but you can't help but feel that the creators oversex this movie to compensate with the weak writing. Thankfully that is in fact the case, as her sex appeal reaches new heights in this movie while tiptoeing around any actual revelation of nudity. The film still delivers plenty of the sexiness that voyeurs will still have their rewind moments and post on the internet what minute mark to tune in for other perverts. Overall, the movie is a mindless action platform to introduce and test Zoe Saldana as a draw and leading woman. She's definitely shows that she's capable of both despite the inherent weaknesses throughout the film without much fault of her own, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing her continue to establish herself as a leading woman in sex symbol. The movie had me upset at the thought that I watched this in the theater and would recommend that others instead wait for a home release, but overall this movie is definitely worth a viewing at least once. The Olivier Megaton directed Colombiana may not be the brainiest of actioners, but one of the merits of producer Luc Besson's latest brainchild is that fanboys worldwide will come away with a scrap of horticultural knowledge as well as a pretty good time. Sexy vengeful contract killer Catalia, a feline. Zoe Saldana is named after a Colombian orchid species, signing her victims with a lipstick drawing of her floral namesake. Solidly produced, if slightly generic English language pick should do mid-range biz in France where it bowed July 27th and OK number stateside where it goes out August 26th rather than adopting a tired flashback heavy approach. Megaton and screenwriters Besson and regular collaborator Robert Mark Kamen let Kalia's childhood trauma play out up front in an audacious half-hour prologue. Said in 1992. Bogut still a little girl. Catalia Amanda Stenberg witnesses the assassination of her next of kin by crime boss Don Luis B. Bonnets and his vicious right-hand man Marco Jordi Mola. Catalia decides she wants to become a killer when she grows up so she can properly exact revenge on Luis Marco and their gang 15 years. Later played by Sana, she's a pretty impressive contract killer, working for her Chicago-based uncle, Amello Cliff Curtis. The first assignment odds get to see her in is an elaborately staged hit inside a prison, an intricately staged and executed 10-minute plus set piece that reps one of the Pix 2 action highlights. The second is a mano-mano fight in a Henda bathroom, an intentionally messy sequence that injects a welcome dose of reality and real danger into the proceedings, something lacking in the film's more bombastic and generic shootouts and explosions. Much of the viewer's investment will depend on his or her concern for Kalia's plight, and this is where Sana's contribution is key. Despite being a ruthless killer with a killer bob and a predilection for skimpy tight-fitting apparel, costume designer Olivier Barriet seems to have taken a cue from the Avatar Thesp's motion capture bodysuit. She not only exudes sexiness, but also generates a certain amount of sympathy. Saldana's handful of scenes with her artist BF Michael Vaughn, who has no clue what she does for a living, help humanize the otherwise solitary killing machine, and three tense confrontations in a schoolyard and a library with Amello, and during a home visit with the FBI agent on her tail. Lenny James nicely do Tu's plotting and characterization between action setups like all action picks from Besson's Europa Corp, including Helmer Megaton's The Transporter 3. Colombiana is slickly assembled locations including Mexico, the US and France, and Patrick Duran's production design are expertly showcased in Roma. Laura's suit dappled widescreen lensing, editing, and score are unobtrusive. The work of stunt coordinator Michelle Julien, taken the Transporter films, and fight choreographer Alan Figlar. The Bourne Identity Largo Winch is pro but has a greatest hits feel rather than its own identity. Remember You Read It Here first. A Star is Born. Amanda Stenberg steals the entire film, which isn't bad considering she's only 10 years old and is on screen for only the opening 15 minutes or so. She plays the lead, Catalia, who as a 99-year-old witnesses her parents' murders by Marco Jordi Mola, evil henchman of evil drug lord Don Luis B. Bonds. But Mom and Pop had it coming anyway, because every Colombian in this film is a drug dealer and slash or killer and slash or gangster of some kind. Not only does Amanda display genuine terror, I wonder how director Olivier Megaton got her to do that. Threatened to put a puppy in a blender. You sees is cute little baby puppy doggy. Amandla, you see how I put in the how you say blender, but she's handy with a hunting knife too, putting her mark on Marco before going on a rooftop parkour run for her life, dodging bullets, a motorbike, a parkouring pursuer, and various SUVs. It's all breathtaking stuff that makes you read the end crawl really carefully to see if any little girls were harmed in the making of this movie. Catalia then makes her way to the U.S. Embassy, and a nice touch, this pukes up a micro SD card, a parting gift from Daddy, which contains some kind of secret information that gets her instant citizenship and is flown to the States. She then dodges her handler and makes her way to Chicago and Uncle Amello Cliff Curtis, who being Colombian is also some kind of gangster. We know this because we're introduced to him beating some guy to a pulp in a container back in the safe and loving arms of family. Catalia decides she wants to be a professional killer and waste everyone who had anything to do with the deaths of her parents. That'll be all of Colombia then, but first she has to go school, and after bribing the principal to overlook Kalia's late start and presumed missing grades, Uncle Amello convinces her education is the best way by pulling a gun in broad daylight and shooting a passing car full of holes and causing it to crash. Since nobody witnesses anything, he is able to calmly put it away and explain that whilst anyone can do that and presumably not get caught ever, the 3RS will give her a better shot in life. So far so brilliant, but then we fast forward 15 years and get Zoe Saldana, whose vehicle this is. It's not that Saldana doesn't look good, especially after her appearance at the Avatar press conference in Berlin, where she appeared to be promoting anorexia as a fashion statement. Nor is it her athleticism, but in what is a standard Luc Besson, Olivier Megaton, crazy name, crazy guy, mayhem movie she is called upon to act. It's not only out of place, but her gamut runs all the way from A to not quite B. Instead of a 95-minute waste up, we also get a completely unconvincing subplot love affair involving her and artist Danny Delaney. Michael Vaughan. Is it just me, or do all his paintings feature penises in his people drawing a large orchid on the bodies of her victims? It looks like 5 penises joined up, by the way, replicating a necklace he gave to her father before ordering him wasted, and which he gave to her before being wasted. Don Lees knows what that means. The orchid, that is not the penises. Meantime, FBI agent James Ross Lenny James is on Kalia's tail for earlier smuggling herself into a high security jail and taking out a really nasty piece of Colombian work, thanks to a helpful orchid recognizing cleaner in an audible groan-inducing moment, and that penis drawing artist guy of hers. The cops and feds get a solid lead on her QA Leonic shootout and chase through her apartment block, from which she escapes. Not that Don Lees hasn't been busy either. He's taken out Uncle Amello and the latter's mother. This gives Miss Saldana another chance to act, which she seizes with both hands and tosses out the window. I'm sorry, she really can't do it in the hands of a raw actress such as Angelina Jolie, or waiting for Anna Stenberg to have gone rough puberty. These extra scenes would have worked and added some depth to the character, but Saldana can't carry it. Just paint her blue and have done with it. Fair Chris A.S. Catalia now goes on her merry way, finally tracking down Don Louise via threatening Agent Ross, who leads her to the CIA handler who, prompted by a bullet through the window, spills Don Lee's whereabouts. The rest of this, by the numbers going through the motions film, is her taking out Don Lee's hired help who, unlike her, are not bullet or bomb-proof, until it's time to deal with Marco using mostly a hand towel, and finally Don Louise using 2 dogs that have been trained to eat on command. Pretty cool. But sadly we don't get to see it. It's not that Colombiana is bad, but nor is it particularly interesting. It's all rather root-like. An overtired and bored hooker giving yet another hand job, nobody apart from the amazing Amanda Stenberg and those technicians, extras and stunt men hoping to get their next gig, is really giving of their best. And Zoe Saldana, despite her clearly visible efforts and exertions and innate hotness, is out of her depth, handicapped by her limited acting ability in a script that unfairly calls on her to show some Colombiana. 2 inches 2025 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or Studios Colombiana 2 2025 brings back the fierce Catalia Restrepo portrayed by Zoe Saldana on another journey of vengeance and justice following the events of the first film where Catalia took down the men responsible for her parents' deaths. She now faces an even more dangerous challenge, a deadly syndicate that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Plot overview. The story begins with Catalia trying to lead a quieter life, having partially escaped the violent shadows of her past. She's found a small semblance of peace living under identity in a remote village in South America. However, rumors of a powerful crime syndicate known as the Silver FWN begin spreading. This syndicate, notorious for trafficking and large-scale corruption, has a reputation for wiping out entire communities that resist them. When the Silver Fang arrives in Kalia's village, its enforcers inadvertently bring her back into a world she was hoping to leave behind. Kalia's conflict. The Silver Fang quickly realizes they've made a grave mistake in provoking Catalia, as she is once again drawn into a spiral of vengeance. The villagers rally around her as she becomes their guardian angel and protector. But Catalia realizes this fight isn't just about one village, it's about something far larger. The Silver Fang has ties with corrupt politicians, international drug trafficking, and even some of her old enemies who have resurfaced to hunt her down. New characters and allies. Catalia encounters a skilled hacker, Nico, who was once a part of an underground cyber group before being forced into hiding after a run-in with the syndicate. Together they work to expose the syndicate's activities and weaken its network. Nico brings in an additional level of danger but also emotional complexity as he begins to see Catalia